As a horror lover, I am no stranger to Stranger Things, and to celebrate the release of Season 3, we are going to learn how to turn yourself into the iconic monster from the series, the Demogorgon. For making the headpiece, you'll need a styrofoam head, a measuring tape, scissors, a cutting mat, a craft knife, a seam ripper, a glue gun, pens and brushes, foam of various thicknesses, contact glue, duct tape, a cap, gesso, newspaper, white, black, red and blue paint, glossy lacquer, velcro, clay, fabric, and if you have any, warbler. For the makeup part, you'll need a wig cap, black eyeliner, a glue stick, surgical tape, white, blue and red face paint, translucent setting powder, black eyeshadow, Prosade or another skin adhesive, and fake blood. Before we begin, leave me a comment with your favorite horror monster. My favorite has to be Samara from The Ring, which was the first ever horror movie I saw and it spooked me real good. To start off making the headpiece, you'll want to measure around your face. We want the facial features to be as obscured as possible, as the Demogorgon doesn't have any. Not in its mouth anyways. Once you know your measurement, grab some foam and slice out a length of it, a bit longer than what you measured. Now that we have a base, it's time to begin making the petals. Take the measurement from earlier and part it in 6, and that is approximately how long the base of each petal should be. I begin by making half a petal out of foam, shaping the foam to buckle inwards on both sides. This will make sure the petals get a 3-dimensional shape once you glue the pieces together. To piece the petals together, I used a strip of duct tape to keep the edge of the 2 pieces together, putting contact glue in between them and letting them dry. Do the same thing to all 6 of them. Even like this, the petals weren't quite 3-dimensional enough for my liking, so I cut through about half the thickness of the foam with a craft knife, before making small triangular cutouts at the edge. Then I glued and taped them together, making the petal more bowl-like and realistic. You can do this with either duct tape and contact glue, or with a hot glue gun. Just like in my Cusco cosplay tutorial, I removed the brim of the cap with a seam ripper. I glued the foam strip to the cap, securing it with duct tape. With the petals in place on the cap, I realized I had a lot more area to work with, and then a lot sturdier construction at that. I began cutting up thinner slices of foam and built the petals out over the cap, bridging the gap between the 2 materials. I also covered the front of the cap with foam, giving it a slanted edge so it would blend in better once it was on my head. To make the ridge fit my head better, I tried the headpiece on and used the same technique as when I shaped the petals, cutting triangles out and gluing the foam together. With a much thinner sheet of foam, I bridged the gap between the thick foam and the cap in the front, as well as built onto the back to cover the hole as well as any hair that otherwise would have been visible. To give the backside a better blend, I cut strips of foam to form veins across the petals. I gave the veins more details and made more smaller veins with glue from the glue gun. To prime the headpiece for being painted, I covered it in gesso. To make the application easier once it's time to do the makeup, I covered a few of the roots that stick out over the face in warbler to be able to glue them to my face. To make the backside of the headpiece look better, I took strips of newspaper and attached them with the help of more gesso, making it a very sturdy kind of papier-mâché. This also helped to blend the veins into the cap. Now, finally, it is time for my favorite part, which is to paint it. I start off with a deep purpley red, which is a great mixture of brand and dollar store paints. I mix it out with a bit of white and fade the colors into each other to give it more dimension. After this, I painted veins in both darker and lighter colors inside the petals and on the head, which was more for fun than as a necessity, as this will be covered later. Once the paint was dry, I covered it all in a high gloss lacquer, as this is the inside of the Demogorgon's mouth, and mouths are notoriously wet. Another thing mouths are notorious for are being filled with teeth. So let's make some. I had a bunch of foam scraps, so I began to cut them out in vaguely tooth-shaped pieces. At this point, quantity tops quality because you need a huge amount of teeth. I began to paint some of them in a gross greenish white, but I noticed that once they dried, the foam stuck to the paper and ruined some of the teeth, so I decided to paint the rest once they were glued into the petals. Once my hands ached from cutting foam, I began to glue them onto the petals in rows, with 3 rows inside each petal. Once the teeth were stuck inside, I began to paint them white, attempting to reach all sides of them, which was not easy. Don't worry if you get some paint on the inside of the petal. I got a whole bunch, which I covered in dark red, making it look like blood on and around the teeth. Let's not forget that we have a whole other side of this piece that needs painting. The Demogorgon's skin is a very greyish beige, so that's exactly the color I gave it. To make it look extra gross, I painted the veins red and blue before beginning to shade the beige parts, giving it a faint illusion of muscle or brain, whichever feels grossest. With all the painting done, I added some saliva strings made out of hot glue between the teeth to make it look extra gross. Dimensional. Somewhere in all of this, I did cut off the smallest petal, which I'm now adding Velcro to the sides of, to be able to attach it once the headpiece is on. And with that, the whole headpiece is done. In preparation to actually put this on our heads, we need to make some more teeth to glue onto our face. The Demogorgon has teeth everywhere, so it's just as right that we do. I made them out of a lightweight hobby clay, forming it into little pointy nubs that I let dry overnight. I also painted a piece of fabric and cut out 2 pieces to tape over my ears while doing the actual makeup, making me able to hear but obscuring them and making the headpiece blend better with the rest of my body. And makeup time! Put on a wig cap or restrain any hair you might have in another way before putting this monstrous thing on your head. I outlined the edges with a black eyeliner pen to know where I needed to paint my face. After the headpiece is off again, I began to glue down my eyebrows, giving them a few layers and smoothing the glue out with a little water on my finger. I taped the fabric pieces over my ears with surgical tape, making sure most of it is outside of where I drew on my face. Once the ear flaps are on, I begin to paint my shoulders and neck with white water-activated paint, painting as far back as I can see. Then I begin to carve out some bones and muscles with red and blue grease paint. Since our face is going to be the inside of the Demogorgon's mouth, I began to paint it a deep red at the edges, mixing it with blue the further in I went. This is a good time to begin to question all your life choices. You can question your life choices a bit more once you put on the headpiece, fixing any nooks and crannies that you missed before darkening it in places with a matte black eyeshadow. Whip out your Prosaid or other skin adhesive and attach the warbler roots to your skin before attaching the clay teeth to your face, wherever you wish you normally had teeth. Add some blood where you think you need some, and voila, you are done. Go out and scare some children, you glorious monster. Or wait until Halloween if you don't want to get in trouble for it. It really sucks only being able to do your favorite hobby once a year, doesn't it? Make sure to subscribe and like this video if you enjoyed it and want to see more like it, or other content from me. What tutorial would you like me to do? Follow me on my other social medias, which are on the screen right now, or in the description box below. That is all from me right now. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon.